My price target for 2021 is still $220,000 per Bitcoin. And I think I'm the only one that's really taking it with this take. I think Bitcoin would cut the 160,000 terawatt hours of energy used right now on Earth by half. Because under a Bitcoin standard, you get rid of central banks, you get rid of fiat money, you get rid of the pentagon, right? So these are all huge users of energy. Under a Bitcoin standard, energy use on planet Earth gets cut in half. So it's not only the greenest industry, but it's an imperative that we go on a Bitcoin standard, because that's the quickest way to cut carbon emissions by 50% on planet Earth, is to go onto a Bitcoin standard. And that's my take. I mean, if you want to look at it more generally, yeah, I mean, the Bitcoin energy usage is 30% renewables or higher, and it tends to get toward more renewables. The current energy footprint of Bitcoin is 150 terawatt hours versus 160,000. So it's about 1/10 of 1% of global energy goes into Bitcoin at the moment.
Right.
But I think that we can cut global energy usage in half if we go to a Bitcoin standard. So that's a message that needs to get out there to the progressives out there who are concerned about the environment, as they rightfully should. They should embrace Bitcoin immediately to cut carbon emissions in half on planet Earth. The thing is that humans could become extinct, and Bitcoin is still going to keep going.
So true.
So it's up to us to embrace Bitcoin before we kill ourselves as a species. Before Bitcoin, I would say the timeline for human extinction was maybe 50 years. Now with Bitcoin in the mix, we have a chance to live and survive, and as humans, if we don't try to change Bitcoin, but let Bitcoin change us. If we allow that to happen, then we're going to survive as a species. If we don't, then we'll become extinct. And, Bitcoin will still be hashing. It'll still be grabbing energy from the sun. The difficulty adjustment will find the sweet spot where it keeps going. And it'll just keep going, but no humans will be around to experience it. Well, with Elon Musk, first of all, his stock was outperforming Bitcoin. So he's kind of in a unique situation. Tesla stock has been a skyrocket. So that gives him an interesting position in corporate America. Probably unique in that respect, in that his actual underlying company stock was outperforming this asset that's been compounding at 200% a year. So I think he's really an anomaly, and you can't really use him as a benchmark. So then, okay, let's look at the market as a whole. You have the problem, as Michael Saylor articulates it, is one of loss of purchasing power on your cash reserves, which he estimates to be approximately 15% a year, due to the M1 money supply, other money supply, money printing, expanding at approximately 15% a year or more. So a couple of things. First of all, what's the main competitor to Bitcoin in corporate America? It's borrowing money to buy back your own stock. That's how executives make money in America today. They don't manufacture, they don't produce, they don't hire people and give them living wages. They borrow from the Fed at 0% and buy back their own stock. And so their executive stock options go from $1 to $20. So their compensation is 50, 60, 70 million or 100 million or $200 million. So that's how they engineer that, by gaming the system, by gaming the central bank. And the central bank is in on the con because they claim that there's no inflation. So we can't raise interest rates, even though it's provable and demonstrable that there is lots of inflation and they should be raising interest rates. But because they are working together with these corporations and banks to keep rates low, they must say that there's no inflation, or in fact, they even say there's deflation. So Michael Saylor called time on this. He called them out. He said, wait a minute, I could borrow money to buy back my own stock, but I think that these central banks are printing us into ruination. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that borrowed money, I'm going to take the cash on my balance sheet, and I'm going to borrow at less than 1%. And I'm going to buy this asset that is a bulwark against the inflation. It's going to go up. It's moving up 200% a year, but at a minimum, it's going to outperform inflation by a substantial margin. And so then that is something that every CFO in the country and in the world now cannot ignore, because otherwise they open themselves up to shareholder lawsuits. So he's thrown down the gauntlet. And now every CFO and every CEO and every board member of every public company now has to take that on board by law. It's not something they can decide not to do. They have a legal responsibility. So, and then when you put pencil to paper and you work through the math, they're going to say, wait a minute, this is actually true. We should actually be doing this, or we're going to be sued out of existence by our shareholders. So they, of course, would like to delay making that choice for as long as they can, because it's a change of thinking, and people are resistant to change. So that's why you see a lot of propaganda. So mainstream media, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, MSNBC, CNN, the BBC. There's a lot of propaganda. There's a lot of FUD out there about Bitcoin and the environment. But that's completely false. It's pure propaganda. Bitcoin and dirty and the use in illicit activity, that's completely provably false. But they're very used to getting their way with propaganda. Remember, the Iraq War was sold on this idea of weapons of mass destruction, and a little vial of talcum powder, shaken at the UN and saying, "Look, this is really deadly stuff I'm holding here. I just poured it out of my Johnson and Johnson baby powder, but trust me, it's really really dangerous." And so propaganda really is impactful these days because of the control of media by just a very, very few players, and those few players are beholden to the money printers. So it's tough for corporations to go against it. I think that's what the whole Elon Musk on Saturday Night Live was about. Lorne Michaels, who's the producer, he's very tight, obviously, with Comcast, and Comcast is a major corporate conglomerate and monopolist in America, and NBC News and MSNBC News that they own are major propaganda players. And here's a guy who we think will distract attention from Bitcoin, which we see as an existential threat. So let's put this guy who's awkward, let's put it that way, in front of millions of people talking about a shitcoin, and we'll buy some time. Maybe we'll buy some time, but time's up. If you read, Jack Mahler's thread or some of these other threads, you realize time is up. They've run out of, they're reaching into the trick bag, and they're finding nothing in the trick bag. They've run out of tricks. So when corporate America really runs out of room to finagle and to escape the Bitcoin reality, they've got to make the move. They've got to make the move. So I think it happens in 2021. So my price target for 2021 is still $220,000 per Bitcoin. It's an aggressive price target, but I think so. It's based on U.S. dollar running into severe trouble, and institutions realizing that inflation is in fact not transitory. It's secular, it's structural, it's here for the long haul. And if you're not protecting yourself, you're going to be wiped out. And as Paul Tudor Jones said about Bitcoin, it's the fastest horse in the race when he's comparing it to gold, for example. And so you get this wave, a tsunami of cash comes back in.